After 4 solid years of resistance rhetoric, the modern left would have you believe that they are this gentleman, known as Briefcase Man, at the front of the column of tanks. The only guy, they would have you believe, that is resisting enough to keep the powers of tyrannical authoritarianism away. In a sense, they are very, very correct. The modern left is this gentleman at the front of the tank column. Make no mistake about it. They are correct in that assessment. The part that they don't tell you is that this gentleman, representing the left, isn't there to hold off the tank column. He's there to show them where the dissidents are and to walk them directly to your home. Here's a little hot tip for you, Sparky. When your party line has been adopted by the government, academia, big tech, the entertainment industry, and every major cultural institution, you aren't resisting a goddamn thing. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. And they are guaranteed to choke you with that big, fat dose of the truth cock. Welcome back, boys and girls. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon. Glad for you guys that made it out early, getting the jump off here. Got a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of good stuff. I think you guys will dig it. Everybody in for the drum roll. Like to start it off, man, just like that. Little punch in the face, little ice pick through the forehead, kicking out the jams with our bumper music, which, as you all know by now, if you have paid any attention whatsoever, is by a band called Red Desert out of the smoldering embers and ruins of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the track is Older, No Wiser, because every week I get a little bit older, and every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. Real quick roll call. Let's use on board. My beloved Oksana. Sergey loves you too. Dobry and mwah, my beautiful lady. Emmy on board. Brother Joel Allen Jackson. We got Roman, and I'm sure Carrie. Because they are a team effort and a team package. From opiumtales.com, they're on board early. Let me see who else we got here. Scrolling down, we got Brother Oz. We got Dennis, OG, Reverence Ranger, Prophet of Doom. Wayne Sharp, even further back, OG. That guy's known me all the way since high school. He can tell you some of the things about the roots of my depravity that some of you guys wouldn't even be able to get your heads around. Him and his brother both, man. Tell Larry I miss him, man. He's got to start showing back up. We got Brother Aaron on board. We got Joey, the Sultan of Sarcasm. Brother Oz, man. Good to see you again, man. All of our regular usual suspects have shown up, and we're ready to kick this thing off. I've got my bottle of liquid enthusiasm ready to rock this shit. Brother Ryan on YouTube. I was just getting ready to say, man, because we are going to be going over some stuff that is going to be of some sincere importance to you. So I'm glad you made it, man. I assume everything panned out there at the job site. Everything's cool. Nobody blew the fuck up. So we'll call it a win. What do you say, man? We got everybody on board, man. Chris Reyes. Hey, what's going on, brother? Good to see you on board. We're going to roll with it. I'm going to start feeding this bumper music down here in just a second. Start scrolling through, taking a look at things. Get my banner up right here. There we go. All right. Starting to learn my way around StreamYard a little bit better. Camera angles are coming together. Production values coming together. And thankfully, the motel's got a relatively good Wi-Fi connection more often than not. Some weeks are better than others, but that's just kind of coming with the territory when you're living on the road, man. Like I said, at the end of the day, I'm just a crane operator with some opinions. And right now I'm living out here in a little town in Central Oregon, working on a project for a platform that keeps kicking me off for 30 days at a time. No professional courtesy whatsoever. You think I could just call Zuckerberg up and be like, dude, I'm the guy flying the roofing material. Could you cut me some fucking slack? But apparently not. So that's the way it rolls, man. Tom on board. Good to see you, man. Glad you made it jumping in live. We got Lance on. Hey, man, what's going on, Lance? Glad you made it in. Cool. So let's go ahead and fade this bumper music out. Let's get the show started. What do you say? Once again, the track, Older No Wiser, is the name of the track. Name of the band is Red Desert, from the smoldering embers and ruins of the once great city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yet another fine American city falling victim to the ravages and excesses of the American left. It's just amazing. If it were not for double standards, the left would have no fucking standards whatsoever. You and I both know it. It's incredible to me how a demonstration with a dude wearing a Viking helmet and acting a little retarded it turns into an insurrection, but them actually setting the Secret Service guard shack on fire outside the White House. Somehow, no harm, no foul. But again, that's fuck, man. We could go down that hole for hours and get lost. Dusty Tellison on board. Glad you made it just in time for the sponsor shout outs. Once again, my Viking brothers have delivered a phenomenal holiday bird. They are doing birds for Christmas, guys. So look them up. Nordic Smoke Barbecue. You can find them on Facebook. I think they're on all major social media platforms. Look them up. And if you are in the Spokane area, get in touch with them. They are the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. And since 2014, we have kept the tradition alive. They have smoked my holiday turkey for Thanksgiving every single year since 2014. Last year, we were actually able to arrange to get that turkey transported all the way down to Texas because I was down there dealing with some health maladies and whatnot. They're phenomenal fucking people, and the product is fantastic. And again, it's a holiday tradition at the Bar Bunker. They are doing Christmas turkeys as well, so get in touch with them, man. And that is Casey and Dusty Tellison, Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. Speaking of Inland Northwest, John Goldsmith, glad you made it out, brother. I will be back up for Christmas, and you will have to stop by. Brother Aaron chiming in. Aaron was there. We got a little iron session in at the old Northwest Temple while I was there. And he got to experience the glory of the Nordic Smoke Thanksgiving turkey. One more sponsor shout out that I got to give, of course, to Roman and his lovely wife, Carrie, and of course to Allie and Roxy and the bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. You definitely have to go check out their website, opiumtales.com. Even more so now that Jack Boots Dorsey has banned him from the Twitter platform. Oh, the irony, and I can't wait. One day I'll get to reveal it. Yeah, definitely go check it out at opiumtales.com. Beautiful naked women and testosterone-driven commentary. What's not to like about that? And not only is Roman a really great artist and a really great musician, another thing that a lot of people don't know about Roman, phenomenal musician, guitarist, pianist, fucking you name it. But one of the sharpest cats that I know and one of my oldest and dearest friends. We actually date all the way back to 1988, if memory serves. And sometimes memory serves and sometimes it does not, as we will touch on in the next bullet point that we're going to be jumping on. Well, Dennis, I think they can make arrangements for that. It's going to cost you, but dude, hit them up. I mean, it never hurts to ask. All they can say is yes or no. Yeah, definitely hit them up. And besides, maybe we need to light a fire under their ass because we need to get them with some kind of thing, because literally there are people all over the country that are wanting to sample the wares of the Nordic Smoke Barbecue Brigade. So at the very least, they are producing their sauces on a commercial scale now. And I think they'll be able to get some of that goodness down to you, including the holiday lingonberry. And by the way, that Desperado sauce, Dusty, I got to tell you, it's my new favorite, man. It's my new fucking favorite. That Desperado sauce is the freaking gospel, by the way. But of course, you know, the Odin mustard barbecue sauce, that stuff goes on everything too. So anyway, without beating a dead horse, because we beat the hell out of that dead turkey, man. Jesus Christ. I mean, we literally stripped it down to the bone and then boiled down the bones for soup. We made everything out of that, and we got every bit of use out of that turkey that was like even theoretically feasible. So it was fantastic. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and thanks again to my guys at Nordic Smoke, and thanks again to my dear friend Roman over at Opium Tales. They are the guys that make this whole thing possible. So take care of them when you can. So rather than go into the rabbit hole, Ryan's rabbit hole this week, we're going to talk about the origins of the rabbit hole. And the origins of the rabbit hole discussion. Let me tell you something. You guys that have been following me for a while, you know that Brother Ryan was the guy that facilitated opening the doors for me to get into the crane trade. He basically enabled me to change my entire life, and very much for the better, to provide a measure of security for myself and my family in an otherwise uncertain world. And beyond that, he's also been a very important part of this program, even before we started doing the rabbit hole segment. He was the guy that shook me off the fence, because you guys remember the early days, probably the first couple months that we were doing this. This was my way of dealing with the COVID insanity back then in the early days of the pandemic. And he was the guy, because nobody else would step up. You know, Ryan's one of those guys who he is unfettered by the usual things that will keep people from stepping to me. And the fact that he knows what he's holding, and he's gonna call it like he fucking sees it. You know, he's scared of my big ass. And he was the guy that basically stepped up and checked me. He was like, dude, this thing is turning into the fucking COVID cast. I know you're deeper than that. I know you've got more going on in your head than that. So how about you fucking expand this thing a little bit? Because everybody's talking about COVID now, and you've got so much more going on. You could do so much more with this fucking podcast. You could do so much more with the sermon. And, you know, it shook me out of my comfort zone, and it forced me to fucking expand things a little bit. And then by the time I got to Nebraska and we were actually working together on the wind farm, you know, he was always the first sounding board. He was the guy that provided the guidance, because ultimately, Ryan, besides being my brother, he is the demographic that I'm trying to reach, you know, which is good, hardcore, working class American. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, someone who is, you know, he's not a grazer. You know what I mean? He's got his own mind. He's got his own will. He works for a living. He makes no excuses. He takes no excuses. And that's really the demographic. So when I want to know if the target audience, if this is something that's going to resonate with the target audience, Ryan's a sounding board. And the reliability of his judgment as a sounding board has not steered me wrong a single fucking time throughout this whole thing. So this was before we started doing the rabbit hole segment. The origins of the actual rabbit hole segment, as I've told you before, he is a repository of the obscure and the esoteric. He's probably the one guy that I actually sweat playing a game of fucking Trivial Pursuit with, because literally, man, he's got the tendrils of his knowledge extend into such a broad-based area of expertise. I mean, there's literally nothing that he doesn't cover, or at least have some tangential touch on somewhere. But what actually brought it home was wax. That's right, wax, or more to the point, without wax. You see, the origins of the word sincere, and this is going to be not so much an indictment, but a perspective check on the nature of these rabbit holes themselves. Most of you guys know in quotation marks, at least you do now, because we've covered it on the rabbit hole, the origins of the word sincere. Dating back to the Latin, where statues would be found to be true and proper statues if they did not have to be sealed with wax. Sincere without wax. Etymologists, by the way, will lose their minds on that shit, because there are a number of etymologists that insist that is not, in fact, the Latin root word and all of these other things. But again, these were the tangential conversations that would happen between me and Ryan, both out on the wind farm and on the telephone after they had moved me down to West Texas and he was still up in Nebraska. It was just, we would just go, you know, and get into all these obscure little bits of historical minutia. And I remember when he first brought it up, you know, he brought it up just in terms of, you know, it's like, I mean that, and then like punctuated without wax. And it rattled me, because I had been taught that. I'd been taught that before, even in public schools. you know, in the 70s and 80s, they actually taught us some of this stuff, and I'd been taught that, but it had completely fucking slipped my mind. And he had to remind me. It's like, hey, look, this was the nature of the word. This is where it came from. And that sent me down the rabbit hole, right? And then I went down the rabbit hole and I found that, yes, that is the generally accepted consensus. And then the further I went down the rabbit hole, I found a lot of nitpicking etymologists that were like, no, in fact, when you read it like this, you know, it's like that classic meme of the dude, actually, that guy. But I say all that to say this. He forced me to explore something, right? That while I may have been tangentially familiar with it in some obscure sense, something that I could relate to from years and years and years ago, but had lost touch with, and then reestablished my bond with that particular understanding, and then forced me even further down the hole to look at some other people's understandings that threw off the whole thing that we were having the discussion about to begin with. I say all that to say this. The nature of his knowledge and the nature of our bond, right, revolves around that particular flair or passion, for lack of a better word, for the little hidden knowledge, the knowledge that, or, you know, knowledge that people take for granted, maybe even. But what I will say for this, for all of the conversations that Ryan and I have ever had back from our very unsavory past in the in the early 90s, we'll talk about that when the statute of limitations runs out. But from those conversations back in the day and the conversations just driving around up in Nebraska when my, you know, virgin fucking self was learning how to run cranes and he was taking all that time, the conversations just there at the house on the back porch, all of these conversations, man, have contributed to that bond. And while that will give you some background on the origins of the rabbit hole segment itself, in a bigger sense, it's my way of saying thank you to my friend and my brother for being an intellectual sparring partner, for forcing me to think deeper, for forcing me to believe in possibilities outside my comfort zone, and for giving me that kick in the ass to get out of that comfort zone and pursue those possibilities. So, Ryan, above and beyond everything, I appreciate you more than you ever know. And I mean that absolutely without wax. Love you, brother. Just wanted to get that. So, so yeah, bro. Yeah. Thank you for all that. I just wanted to give you guys a little background on that segment. So yeah, grandiloquence and sesquipedalian. Yes. Sesquipedalian, you know, that is actually one of my favorite words, because of the irony of it, because basically what sesquipedalian comes down to, or, you know, a sanctimonious display of sesquipedalian perspicacity basically means you're making a big show of using big words where small ones would easily suffice. So, so there's that, man. But anyway, yeah. So thanks to Ryan. Thanks for the rabbit hole. We don't actually have a rabbit hole segment this week because that was the segment. I just wanted to give that shout out and that thank you, and to kind of bring everybody in and share that moment with me. So, so thank you for that. So what do you say? We go ahead and jump into these bullet points. I have a ton of them marked as usual. How far in are we right now? 20 minutes? All right, cool. Yeah, we've got plenty of time to cover all of these bullet points, provided I don't take too far of a run down Tangent Street. From the holy fuck it never ends department, yet another variance. of the world ender that's going to kill us all has surfaced in South Africa. Wow. I'm surprised that they didn't blame. I'm surprised that they didn't blame apartheid. I'm surprised that they didn't blame white supremacy. Somebody probably has on Twitter, and I just haven't found it yet. The Omicron variant. Okay, let's address that first of all. The Omicron. They have been naming these variants off of characters in the Greek alphabet. There was the Gamma variant, there was the Delta variant, there was this, and just going on down through the Greek alphabet. However, the FDA at least sort of tangentially kind of touched on the fact, because there is a character in the Greek alphabet, G. Yeah. And you think that might upset the ruling Communist Party, who, of course, is bankrolling Fauci and everybody else who was involved in this fucking power play. So I got a feeling when we get around to the letter to the Greek alphabet character G, we're probably just going to skip that one. But right now we're on Omicron. I should point out too, and this, Aaron, this is strictly for you because this is only tangentially connected, but there is actually a film from the late 60s, early 70s called Omicron. And basically the plot of the film is an alien variant infiltrates the human species to find a way to exploit our weaknesses to control us. It's funny. I don't think it's intentional. I'm not going to chalk that up to the Council of 12 or the Gnomes of Zurich or the Elders of Zion or anything like that, making these fucking calls. But yeah, it is kind of a funny little sidebar. Anyway, the Omicron variant symptoms, unusual but mild, says South African doctor. This from the New York Post, I should point out, because I like you guys to know my sources. Dr. Angelique Coetzee. I hope that I'm pronouncing that right because I don't speak Afrikaans. Dr. Angelique Coetzee sounded the alarm of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus in South Africa. And what they have found is this is the bullet point that's going to make the news. This is the bullet point they're going to beat you over the fucking skull with, is that it's roughly 10 times as virulent, 10 times as contagious as any previous strain. That's what you're going to hear. What you're not going to hear is that the primary symptoms are muscle aches and you feel like you got a cold for a couple of days. The lethality is next to nothing, which is normal for viruses, because what does a virus want to do? A virus wants to survive. A virus wants to survive to replicate. Right? That's one of the reasons why the filoviruses can get a mild foothold, but they never take off, because they kill the host too fucking quickly. And they don't have a long enough incubation period. So by the time you're bleeding out of the eye sockets, nobody wants to get close to you. And you die before you can really spread, before the virus gets a chance to replicate. The tendency with viruses is that every new strain that comes along will be more contagious and less lethal. This is basic biology. This is basic virology. Any honest virologist will fucking tell you this. And I've got more than a dozen on my fucking friends list, including a couple that work for the CDC. We're not going to give their names out, right? But this is normal. This is normal in the course of a virus. It becomes more contagious and it becomes less lethal, because ultimately, what good does it do? I'm the biggest, baddest virus on the block, but I died the fuck out because I killed all my fucking victims and I couldn't replicate. If you die before you can breed, that's a pretty basic violation of a natural selection Darwinian ethic. So anyway, that's what we're seeing with the Omicron variant. But again, we know how the press is going to take this, and they're going to fucking run with it. Of course, they are going to tell us that it is the deadliest strain ever. And of course, they are going to make much of the fact of how it is infecting the youth, particularly when Pfizer is trying to get clearance for all of their vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds. And currently, by the way, you can look this up, Pfizer has 3 sets of tests in progress now for the vaccine in 6-month to 5-year-old kids. 6 months old to 5 years old, they're doing vaccine trials. Even though, for all intents and purposes, yes, there have been anecdotal examples. Out of over 700,000 people that have died from COVID in the United States, less than 100 have been kids of any age from birth up until 18 years. But they want you to vax your children. Why the push? Why the push? It's all about here, and anyone with 2 brain cells left to rub together can see what's going on here. By the way, I should take the opportunity to point out right now, if you vaccinate your children, I don't care how long we've been friends. I don't care if you are blood relation to me. I don't care if we have known each other for decades. If you put that poison in your child, you are fucking dead to me. I would thank you to disconnect from me on all social media and quite publicly say goodbye on your way out the door. At least have the nuts to do that, because I don't associate with child abusers. I don't. And I've got no sense of humor left about this shit. So that's where we're at. That'll be one ultimatum I'll be laying down. I'll be laying down another one that I've already more or less enforced with one individual about bail reform, but we're going to save that until we get to the Waukesha segment. Right now, we're still in the holy fuck it never ends department. Here is an interesting little thing about the Omicron variant. Okay, so I did a Google search, real quick Google search. Again, Google, not DuckDuckGo, because you use Google when you want to find out what the party line is. And these were the first results that popped up. Variant spreads to Australia and more of Europe. Variant travel bans may be too late. That from the Washington Post, and we'll get to the travel ban in a minute. Omicron variant puts nations on alert, says the New York Times. South Africa punished for detecting new Omicron variant. This from the BBC. Statement by President Joe Biden, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, panic, panic, panic. It's spreading all around the world. It's too late to stop it, and it's going to fucking kill us all. Any of us could have easily seen this coming. Here's what I'd like to know. The PCR test is the most common antibody test that they're running right now. Some of you have been tested for COVID. I personally, except for when I obviously contracted it, haven't bothered like getting a test because I'm not that much of a hypochondriac. It's like, no, I got to constantly be tested because, I'm going to medicate myself if I get the thing again. No, because I trust my own immune system. Here's the thing. Any of you that have been tested, when they tested you, did your test tell you which strain you had? Regular old school COVID, the Delta variant, the Omicron variant, the Gamma variant, any of the variants that we've been told about that were the next new variant that everybody had to get vaccinated against, that were going to kill us all, that were going to evade the vaccines anyway, but you still need the vaccines and the vaccine passport because reasons. Did the test tell you what strain you had? No, it did not. Why? Because the tests that they're issuing to public health officials can't tell the difference between strains. So anything that we're saying about cases going up due to any particular variant is pure speculation. End of statement, fucking done. Fauci can do all the hashtag intellectual gymnastics that he wants to do about this kind of stuff, and it ultimately does not matter. It does not matter. If it kills real fast, it fails. Yep. Good observation, Roman. Yeah. That's basically what it comes down to. There's nothing to differentiate that in any of the tests. So any of the things that they're offering about the new spike in cases is due to whatever variant, they're lying. They're lying. It's pure speculation. Pure speculation. End of statement, done. But the herd will follow it. Don't be part of the herd. I say all that basically just to say this. But, of course, Biden. Now, when I went to fact check that, of course, the fact checker said, well, that's missing context. And then when I went to dig deeper, what did the fact checks have to say about it? They threw up a straw man. The straw man was that the CDC test inflates COVID-19 virus with influenza. So again, if you're gonna throw a straw man at me, do me a favor, let me know so I can put my cigarette out. But more to the point, here's how our cadaver in chief responded to that. First of all, I'd just like to pull up a little tweet. This is from This is from our cadaver-in-chief back in February of last year. Trump further diminished the U.S. in the eyes of the world by expanding his travel ban. This new African ban is designed to make it harder for Black and brown people to immigrate to the United States. It's a disgrace, and we cannot let him succeed. This from our cadaver-in-chief. This from Joe Biden. This from the Joe Biden that just, wait for it, instituted a travel ban from Africa. Yeah, South Africa and 7 other African nations. They're on a list. You can't travel from there and come to the United States. Here's the kicker. It's so urgent. It's so urgent to control the spread that the travel ban doesn't take effect until Monday. It was announced on Friday. But it doesn't take effect until Monday. That's how urgent it is. It's so very, very urgent. Just like his vaccine mandate is so urgent that it doesn't take effect until January. It's urgent. We got to control the spread. How can anyone not see the patent prima facie absurdity of this entire thing by now? It's literally, yeah, Ryan, that's the word, xenophobic. Nothing about the lawsuit to remove Fauci. No, because it hasn't gained any traction yet. We'll be discussing it in the coming weeks for damn sure. Again, Rand Paul, last of a dying breed. He's not his father, but he'll do for the time being. This is what we're up against, folks. This is what we're up against. It's just patent absurdity at this point, and no one's minds are being changed on either side. To be completely fair, nobody's minds are being changed. If you believed in the fear rhetoric and the fear narrative, you are going to believe it all the way out to the end. If you're already double jabbed and couldn't wait to get your booster and didn't realize that it's kind of fucked up that you're considered fully vaccinated until they switch it and say, no, without the booster, you're not fully vaccinated, and change your fucking status at the drop of a hat. If you were committed to the fear narrative, you're going to follow it. It doesn't matter. There'll be 47 boosters. There'll be 110 new strains. Every new one is going to have fewer and fewer deaths associated with it, but the media is going to pump the fear, and you're going to stick with that narrative that this is the one that's going to kill us all. Now isn't the time to let down our guard. Government's got to do what it has to do, including locking us away in camps. If you're committed to that narrative, you're all in by now. Most of us with 2 brain cells to rub together and with our spines and our balls still intact, we stopped giving a shit about this a year ago. The only thing that keeps us even tangentially connected to it is the fact of the intrusion on our freedoms that the power play is affecting. And that's having a direct effect on us. Outside of that, we don't care about your fucking virus. We stopped caring about your virus a year ago. I lost my best friend of 30 years. Okay? And it does not change one fucking thing about the numbers. He gave me the COVID that killed him. And it doesn't change one fucking thing about the numbers. I self-treated with steroids. He listened to the doctors. He's dead. I'm not. And nothing changes anything about the numbers. Well, Bart's bound to feel differently now that Saul's dead. No, I don't feel dead. I don't feel one bit different about it. And according to someone who was one of the last people to talk to Saul, who asked him, hey, man, if you bounce back from this, are you going to get the vaccine? What about the Delta variant? And Saul fucking soldiered to the goddamn end. Keep in mind, he was diabetic. That's one of the leading comorbidities and causes of fatality. All right? So that was different. But according to AJ, one of the last things he said when he brought up the thing about were you going to get vaccinated now, you're going to get the Delta variant, Saul, according to AJ, said, man, fuck Delta and fuck the vaccine, because that's my bro. That's Saul. And the fact that he died of it, all that did was make it personal for me, because the rest of you are going on purely emotional arguments. I lost my best friend of 30 years. I lost a man with whom I shared a bond that had all the trappings of a marriage without all that brokeback shit. I lost him, but I'm not ruled by my emotions, and he wouldn't want me to be. Straight the fuck up. And that's where we're at. All right, man. Sorry. Didn't mean to get off on a tear, and I know particularly for one young lady in the audience that might have That might have been a bit over the top emotionally, but I know you're with me and I know you agree. So it just needed to be addressed. That's the only reason I even give a fuck about this entire pandemic scare anymore, is the power play. But at the end of the day, we're winning. Again, let me finish with this. We're winning. There's pushback all over the place. The Fifth Circuit said fuck you to the vaccine mandate. The Biden administration said OSHA's going to push for it anyway. And OSHA said, no, we're fucking not. You go ahead and push it, but we're not going to enforce it. So now the Biden administration's asked out. That is proof of the wisdom of the founding fathers and the separation of powers and the system of checks and balances. The court put a check on the unchecked power of the executive branch. Those have been very few and far between, at least since the George W. Bush administration and the Patriot Act. But the Fifth Circuit checked them. That's it. It's a pushback. We're winning. Companies are refusing to enforce it because they know they're going to lose half their labor force. It's a pushback. We're winning. Demonstrations all over the world pushing back against vaccine mandates and vaccine passports, including in Australia, where tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, they were building those internment camps. Oh, those aren't internment camps. Those are camps for people who are flying into Australia who have to be quarantined, and now they're being used for people who test positive that are Australian citizens that are living over there. We told you. But guess what? They're demonstrating against that in Australia. The Australians don't even have guns. They're just bum rushing the police barricades because they don't give a fuck. The pushback is happening. We are past the tipping point. We are winning. So get that black pill out of your fucking mouth. Bring it on in, knuckle up, saddle up for the big fucking win. All right. Last week. That's an excellent point, Joey. Kind of a sidebar, but yeah, that's actually a pretty good point. Keep in mind, though, the court that was putting the checks on Trump, though, Joey, was always the Ninth Circuit, and we know what the Ninth Circuit is about. And usually they were ultimately overruled by a higher circuit court or by the Supreme Court of the United States. So there's that. Last week, early on, George Williams, he hit me over in the comments, and I did not get a chance to see the dialogue. I was off on a tear, and you guys know me. When I get off on a tear, I have the tenacity of a pit bull looking for a meth fix, and I stayed with the rant. I finished the program. So it wasn't until after the program that I saw what he was trying to bring to my attention, what had just happened in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Guys, let's just call it what it is. It was a massacre. It was an act of war, an act of terror. When I say act of war, I say act of war in line with the rhetoric of the people that this gentleman represents. And for as much as the media narrative wants to try to distance him from Black Lives Matter, the fact of the matter is he's strongly tied to Black Lives Matter, and he parroted their rhetoric. Okay. I'm not going to parse my words, but I'm going to choose them very carefully. This predatory miscreant scumbag is the lowest of the low. You guys are familiar with my flip the script rule on anything involving race. Anything. The rule is, how would I feel about it if we flip the script? If the aggrieved party was A and the grievance was B, if the perpetrator were B and the victim were A, let's flip the script. And then we'll take a look at it from that perspective. Here are the facts of the matter. 60 plus people are in the hospital. 6 people now are dead. Because a black man affiliated with Black Lives Matter, an ardent racist, a man who made no bones about his hatred for white people, a man who was a lifelong criminal, violent criminal, pimp, wife beater, violent felon many times over, and we're going to get into all of that, took his vehicle, used it as a weapon, and plowed through a Christmas parade. A fucking Christmas parade. Let me just knock out the false equivalencies real quick, because that was the immediate Twitter knee-jerk reaction. Oh, a white kid shoots a bunch of BLM protesters and you don't care about it, but all of a sudden some white people get run over and now it's an emotional issue. All right, Sparky, let's play with that idea for a minute. The people that the Waukesha murderer, and I'm going to repeat his name as little as possible, because the more times we say his name, the more we're according him humanity, and he doesn't deserve it. In a perfect world, he would have been drugged from that vehicle, and every citizen of that town, summarily and unceremoniously, would have drug him out, torn his limbs out of their sockets, and set him on fucking fire. That's where I'm at. Your mileage may vary, but I'm sick to death of it. Well, that sounds dangerously like a lynching, doesn't it? Well, if the news fits. God, boy, you're getting kind of harsh. Yeah. But the one thing you know about me is I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel about it. I'm not going to make any fucking apologies. Fuck this piece of shit. Do you think the other side would have made any exceptions if they would have put hands to Kyle Rittenhouse? What do you think would have happened to him? Torn limb from limb, beaten to death, probably shot with his own fucking weapon. And the same people that bristle at my "if the news fits" comments would be cheering it on. Simple as that. Because this is who these people are. Time to stop kidding ourselves. Time to put on our big boy panties and start calling things what they are. He killed 6 people and injured more than 60. Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2, injured 1, all of which were in the process of trying to kill him. This maggot, this predatory miscreant maggot, scumbag, killed now 6, and that body count might still get higher, and injured 60, whose crime was enjoying a Christmas parade. From the New York Post, the life and crimes of accused Waukesha Christmas parade killer Darrell Brooks. I'm just going to skim over. Christmas parade becomes a blood-soaked nightmare. 39 years old, used a red Ford Escape to plow through revelers at an annual Christmas celebration. A review of his history patched together from court documents, interviews, public record. His first felony at 17 years of age. His mother was a Christian woman with Southern roots, tried to steer him away from trouble on the streets, but despite her best efforts, Brooks would go on to follow in his father's footsteps. His absent father, by the way. Illegitimate birth is a problem in which community? Right. Again, hashtag hate fact. I'm going to call it like it is. If that short dick's every cannibal on the Congo. And if that sounded racist to you, you're probably watching the wrong fucking program. He abandoned his kid 3 months after birth. First felony in 1999 at age 17 for substantial battery intending bodily harm. 3 years of probation. Before his probation was over with, he got hit in 2002 and 2003 over separate incidents. Again, violent misdemeanors. 2005, contributing to the delinquency of a minor after he raped and impregnated a teen girl. Let me say that again. Contributing to the delinquency of a minor after he raped and impregnated a teen girl. He settled the case by pleading guilty, but was ordered not to contact the victim. He violated that order, using a stolen phone card and confronting her at public bus stops. They stuck him back in jail again for raping and impregnating a teenage girl. And in spite of all of that and breaking the restraining order, he served just 129 days in jail. He was forced to register as a sex offender, and then they featured him in a documentary. What? Yes. Yes, he was featured in a documentary called Crystal Darkness. You can find this documentary online, by the way. At which point he just said it was all his struggles with methamphetamine. Yeah, struggles with methamphetamine. See, that's what was all behind all of this stuff. Look, dude, I've seen meth do horrible things to fucking people, but spare me. Spare me the sanctimony, Sparky. Of course, the documentary, the way that they handled him, if you go and watch the documentary, it's the typical Pollyanna do-gooder thing. Well, he's really trying to get his life together, and all he needs is another chance. And we've just got to put the resources behind him and give him the helping hand that he desperately needs, blah, 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 blah. So between 2009 and 2011, he was in and out of jail, resisting, obstructing an officer, strangulation, and suffocation, again, on another female, because he's really just trying to get his life together. During a 2011 bust, he was charged with restricting or obstructing an officer for the second time after being pulled over. During the traffic stop, a Milwaukee police officer jumped inside of Brooks's car because Brooks was trying to run him over. He's walking the streets. It goes on. I mean, again, you can look this up yourself. It's featured in the New York Post. But he made his way back to Wisconsin following trouble in Georgia, where he was, again, convicted, multiple violent felon, and is still walking around in the free fucking world. He got in a fight with his ex-girlfriend at Milwaukee's at the American Inn in Milwaukee, in the Lenox Heights neighborhood, beat the shit out of her, knocked her cell phone out of her hand, and then, are you ready for this? Ran over her with a red Ford SUV. Wow, we couldn't have anticipated any of these things happening. I mean, an attack like this just comes out of the blue. This couldn't have been predicted. A couple of weeks prior to the massacre, he ran over his ex-girlfriend with the same red Ford SUV. And the Milwaukee County District Attorney, John Chisholm, bonded him out for $1,000. $1,000. $1,000. For one of a nail, the shoe was lost. For one of a shoe, the horse was lost. For one of the horse, okay. The second ultimatum. If you are an advocate for bail reform, not in theory, I don't want to hear about your utopian theories. If you are an advocate for bail reform in practice, I don't care if I've known you for 30 years. I don't care what history we may share. One person has already been summarily cut loose from my life that I had decades of history with. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm past caring, because at some point, morally, you are compelled to pick a side. If you support bail reform as practiced, get the fuck out of my life. Abandon me on all social media platforms. Block my fucking phone number. Stop being in contact with me. Just have the balls to tell me goodbye on the way out. Just say goodbye and fuck you on the way out, so I at least know you still had some fucking semblance of a spine. Don't go sneaking off and cover of darkness, like the rest of your fucking team. $1,000 he got out, and he ran through a Christmas parade. A fucking Christmas parade. I find it difficult to understand. No, I don't. Because these people are shock troops. They know exactly what they're doing. How about we talk about the victims, since they want to draw the false equivalencies? Well, you didn't get upset with Rittenhouse. Well, that's because the people that Rittenhouse killed, first of all, were in the process of trying to kill him. And once we looked into their records and figured out who they were as people, it really wasn't like the world had lost a cancer cure. Here are the victims of the Waukesha massacre. Tamara Duran, 52 years old, former school teacher. First-time member of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies. 79-year-old longtime Dancing Grannies member, Virginia Sorensen. So we have a 52-year-old, we have a 79-year-old. She was a registered nurse. She was at the back of the group holding a banner. She was one of the first people struck by the speeding car. Sorensen had 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Leanna Owen, 71, managed an apartment complex in the nearby city of Cody and is said to have been beloved by her building's tenants. 2 other deceased victims were identified by the police as 81-year-old William Hospital, who was the husband of one of the Dancing Grannies, and a 52-year-old bank employee named Jane Kulik. And since then, an 8-year-old boy has died of his injuries. 5 elderly and 1 little boy. Participants in a Christmas parade. And here's what you won't hear. So when we start, and it's hard for me to read this because, again, it's spelled in, you know how it's spelled. Anybody who's ever seen a lyric sheet from any modern rap artist will know exactly how it's spelled. So it's difficult enough to read. But this is from his social media. So when we start back knocking white people the fuck out, I want to hear it. The old white people too, knock them the fuck out, period. Under his pseudonym, Math Boy Fly. Learned and taught behavior. So we back start knocking white people the fuck out. I want to hear it. Real charmer, this guy. Did I mention that he freely admitted pimping a 16-year-old? No. At this point, I'm just piling on. But some of these, man, from the Twitter account, and I'll spare you because you can look it up yourself. Townhall.com, Waukesha suspects social media. Just Google that. Actually, don't Google that. DuckDuckGo it. Because the Google thing is running with the official narrative. And the official narrative right now, is that it wasn't him at all. He's not responsible for it. He and his racist cohorts aren't responsible for fucking dead white people. They could care less. See, because he didn't really do it. It was the red SUV that was at fault. Yeah. Let me just look at this. I Googled, again, the difference between the DuckDuckGo search and the Google search. So I looked up Waukesha truck crash. That was the exact thing that I entered. I-94 crash. The first one doesn't even turn out to be the Christmas parade. Google, their algorithm is such that when I entered Waukesha truck crash, the first thing that popped up was a crash on the 94 involving an 18-wheeler. Second one was car plows through Christmas parade in downtown Waukesha. 5 dead, more than 40 injured after SUV plows into crowd. Waukesha Christmas parade, 5 dead and 40 injured after car plows into crowd. Woman killed in accident with dump truck, and now we're not even talking about the actual Christmas parade incident anymore. Isn't that the craziest thing? Imagine if the headline would have been, "This just in, Dodge Challenger found guilty for tragic traffic death in Charlottesville, Virginia." And Joey, I'll give you full credit for this one. It is said that there were very fine cars on both sides. Imagine if that had been the headline. Do you think anyone would have given him a pass over that? Doubtless the answer is no. You know better, and so do I. So why are they being given a pass? You know the answer to that. And so do I. Because it doesn't fit their precious narrative. Here's an interesting thing about that narrative. Sidebar tangent, but they're constantly beating us over the head with white supremacist domestic terrorism is the biggest threat to the United States. Did you see, in the wake of the Ahmaud Arbery verdict, was there anyone on either side of the press, from Fox, from CNN, from MSNBC, was anyone even suggesting that if those killers were convicted, that white people would riot and burn down cities? No, because it's patently fucking absurd. Everybody knows who riots and who doesn't. Everybody knows who brings the violence and who doesn't. Everybody knows who commits the crime and who doesn't. According to the red SUV narrative, apparently red SUVs, even though being only 13% of all vehicles, commit 50% of all traffic fatalities. You see what I did there? But I'm going to stand by it because right now, not speaking things because they make people uncomfortable, even though they're 100% factual, even though they're 100% verifiable. Not saying these things is getting people killed. You are allowing people to glaze over. You are allowing people to lie. You are allowing people. And I'm going to speak to my people now. And when I say my people, I mean white people of European descent. You know exactly who the fuck I'm talking about. You need to find your spine and your balls, scared little whitey. Because it's on for you, man. It's on for you. I'm not suggesting hate anybody. David fucking Lane didn't actually suggest hating anybody. You familiar with the precepts? You're going to walk around talking that 1488, but you're not familiar with the precepts? What did David Lane say? Go back and look at the precepts. What did he have to say about it? It is not constructive to hate those of other races. It is not constructive to hate those of mixed race. But one must hate with a pure and perfect hatred the members of one's own race who seek to undermine and destroy it from within. That's David fucking Lane, father of white nationalism, the movement that's so fucking potentially the biggest terror threat in the United States right now. We don't hate anyone. The people we need to be turning our hate towards, our problem is not the guy dealing crack in the projects. Our problem is the guy dealing meth in the trailer park. Our problem is the people who work for the media and the financial institutions and all these other things that seek to minimize what happened here. A militant black racist plowed through a group of elderly white people, killing 6 and injuring 10 times that many. He was motivated by hate. He used a vehicle as a weapon. By any reasonable definition, this was a terror attack, but they won't call it that because it doesn't fit the narrative. So, not constructive to hate, but one must hate with a pure and perfect hatred the members of one's own race. You follow me? You feel me? Brian Stelter, Rachel Maddow, Anderson fucking Cooper, the members of one's own race who have perpetuated this myth, this absolute falsehood of white supremacist terror. Time to call a fact a fact. Hashtag hate fact. And again, I don't care if a short dick's every cannibal on the Congo, because being afraid to speak the truth is getting people fucking killed. Sorry, but there it is. And if you doubt that it's limited just to this, red SUV kills, red SUV plows through, red SUV does this, red SUV runs over elderly, red SUV creates chaos at Christmas parade. See if this sounds familiar. Back in 2016, a little truck crash in Nice, France. Radical Muslim plows through a Bastille Day parade of white Europeans. Radical Muslim refugee / immigrant, a truck that just happened to be loaded with rifles and grenades and all kinds of other shit. But yeah, 84 people were killed. 10 of them were kids. What did the media have to say about that? Radical Muslim goes off on terror, commits terror attack against white Europeans in the city of Nice in France. Nope. The headline was, at least 84 dead after truck crashes into crowd in French city of Nice. That was from 2016. The narrative is always the same. They have declared war. And we've been in a war for a long, long time. I'm not talking about a race war. I'm talking about a legit push at ethnic replacement and white genocide. People want to say that it's a talking point, but the statistics bear me out. Hashtag hate facts. The first step to solving a problem is realizing that one exists. The media double standard is only part of it. The big tech suppression is only part of it. But it is systematic and it is a coordinated effort. And we need to start speaking amongst ourselves and have the balls to speak the truth, even if it makes people uncomfortable. There's a price to be paid for being ahead of the curve. Just before we went to air, I found through one friend's reference and minor DuckDuckGo search the story whose name I could not remember. I'll give it to you. But see, I remembered the story that it was kids that lived. This is how I remembered it. There were kids that lived on another planet. And one kid had come from Earth. One little girl, she had come from Earth, and she remembered what it was like when the sun shined. Sunshine half the day on Earth, but now she's on this other planet. And because of the nature of the planet's rotation, because of the nature of the planet's weather system, the sun only comes out once every 7 years for about an hour. Now, she knows this. She knows this because she knows her history and she knows the truth. But all of her classmates, to them, it sounds insane. So they bully her. And on the day that this thing is supposed to happen, they bully her extra hard. They beat her up, they slap her around, and they lock her in the closet. And after they've locked her in the closet, they're all outside in the gray and the rain. And the clouds part. And the sun comes out. And it stays out for an hour. And all those people get to bask in the glory of witnessing this sight that they had previously ridiculed. Ridiculed to the point where its biggest advocate was bullied, beaten up, and locked in a closet. All she wanted to do was see this thing because she hadn't seen it since she left Earth, and she knew it was real and she knew it was true. But they bullied her and they beat her up and they called her a fool and a liar and they locked her in a closet. And suddenly the clouds part and the sun comes out for an hour. And all of the people that had bullied her and called her a liar and locked her in this closet get to bask in the glow of what she had predicted. And then predictably, the clouds return. It starts to rain again. They all go back inside, talking amongst themselves about the glory that they had witnessed. And then and only then do they realize that the person who had tried to enlighten them this whole time is still locked in that closet. Because of their ignorance and their unwillingness to believe something, because it was so far into their way of thinking, because of their reluctance to believe, and because of their ignorance, this child, the one who had tried to enlighten them, was locked away and missed the whole program. That's what it's like to be ahead of the curve. That's what it is to be a quote unquote tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. That's what it is to be a quote unquote racial realist in this day and age. You're speaking truth to people because you know the history and you know what is true. And all they have is the narrative because that's all they've ever known. So you try to bring it to their attention, whether it's UFOs, whether it's weather manipulation, whether it's false flag operations, whether it's CIA infiltration of media institutions, whether it's 13 do 50, whether it's pick a topic. You try to enlighten them with it, and you sound to them like a fool because that's all they have is the media narrative. All they have is the sound bites because that's all they've been fed, because that's all they've chosen to eat. And so they bully you and they beat you up and they lock you in that closet. They deplatform you. They ban you from this thing for 30 days or that platform for 30 days. They silence you. They shout you down. The cancel mob comes and makes sure to do their best to end your career, to make sure that you won't be able to speak those uncomfortable truths anymore. They lock you in the closet. But one day, inevitably, the clouds will part. They will see the sun. They'll be so caught up, as they always are, in their own narcissistic reality construct that they will forget that you're still back there locked in that closet, but they will behold the sights that you said would one day visit them. The clouds will part, the skies will open, and they will see the sun. They will see the light. What happens when the cloud parts to these people, God only knows. But right now, knowing that you're ahead of the curve, knowing that you're the child that remembers, knowing that you're the child speaking the truth, you better go ahead and get your head around the concept of exactly what you're going to do when they finally let you out of that fucking closet. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. The name of the story, by the way, as I found out just before we went to the air, it is a Ray Bradbury story called All Summer in a Day. You may read it and decide that the analogy doesn't totally work for you. And really, the analogy only worked for me. It was based on my memory of the story, my recollection of the story. So you may read the actual piece from Bradbury and decide that the analogy doesn't work. But I think all of you here can say that you get where I'm coming from. You dig what I'm laying down. There's no mystery about this. We're always ahead of the curve. I love the memories feature on Facebook because I can go back 2 years, 5 years, 10 years and say, look, motherfucker, I told you. And you know what? Wolf, you're absolutely right. They will deny that I said anything. The good news is they can only memory hole so much. And at this point, I'm okay with them denying that I said anything. Doesn't matter, doesn't matter to me at all. I've just got to be thinking about what I'm going to do for the people that have seen the light when they open the door to that closet and they let me out. My God, bro, you were right. And I'm seeing more and more of them every day. That's why we have to keep the word of mouth. That's why we have to keep the discussions alive. Anyway, guys, I'm about 10 minutes over time. I bet I did, Ryan. I bet I did. Oh, brother Mike, thank you, man. I didn't see you up there earlier, man, but I'm glad you made it out, Mike. And thank you again for the camera and the microphone making this thing possible and for the support, bro. I mean, You're my heart. I love you. If anything that I said was something that you hadn't been exposed to before, if anything that I said maybe changed your worldview, enlightened you to a few different facts, at least kept you entertained for a little bit, you want to throw me a little coin, I'll pass around the digital collection plate. I'm on PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Facebook Pay, and every other goddamn thing. If you guys want to throw me a little bit of coin, that would be cool. If not, here's what you can do for me, and I would really, really appreciate this. If you guys are on YouTube, subscribe. If you're not on YouTube, get on YouTube and subscribe. I'm trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Turn other people on to the program. Share the program. Share the replay on all of your social media. Just throw it out there, man. If you're not ashamed to be associated with me, which I totally get, but share it with all your friends. Say, hey, man, there's crane operator with some opinions, man. This crazy, fat, toothless cripple who rants and raves for about an hour every Sunday. He's a like-minded, a kindred spirit. You might dig what he's laying down. And turn him onto the program, man. Share it. Spread the word. Spread that gospel. For all of my Reverend Rangers, for all of my prophets of doom, all of my sinner sisters out there, the Reverend loves you, man. And always remember, above and beyond anything else, the 3 prime directives. You guys know this. Emmy's old man immortalized it for me on a piece of artwork that I cannot wait to hang in the bunker. Just remember the directives and live by it, man. Be the signal, not the noise. Be the light in a world full of darkness and always. And this is the iron rule. Be that strength in a world full of weakness. Strength is the prime directive. Strength and adaptability. Be strong enough to survive it and adaptable enough to shift on the fly and react to whatever's going to come your way. Because we're in a really fucked up period of history right now, and nobody knows what might be coming your way. So be strong enough to survive it and adaptable enough to shift on the fly. Stay moving forward, man. Knuckle up, bitches. We're still in the fight. And as I've said before, and I'll say it forever, we're going to win this thing. Appreciate y'all being here, man. Every single one of you. I love you all, man. We'll see you next Sunday. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Peace. Thanks, guys. Next Sunday, roughly the same time. Love you, man. Thanks for showing up.